Okay, you're live.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for attending the session around fueling cost savings and driving better business decisions with data. My name is Brian Tarble. I am the VP of Product at TealBook. To be transparent, I am just shy of my 2-month anniversary at TealBook. Prior 13 to 18 years have all been in the procurement and travel space from a data and analytics focus. So most recently come over from SAP, where I led an organization that was responsible for aggregating, analyzing, normalizing data and providing insights across a broad set of cloud solutions within the SAP landscape: Concur, Ariba, Fieldglass, S4, etc. Prior to my time there, led data and analytics at Concur for 7 years, and then started my career on the buyer side as procurement buyer, specialist data and analytics owner at Oracle back in the day. So new to TealBook, but not new to this space. This is my first time participating in one of these events, so I'm really excited to be a part of it. I'm going to start here with a quote from the founder and CEO of TealBook, which really sums up, one of the biggest untapped, unused, unoptimized opportunities in the procurement space, and that's really around the supplier database and really leveraging the data and the information and understanding the supplier footprint to really drive, millions of dollars in value and savings to procurement professionals across the world. And if this is, one of those areas that we all agree is super important and impactful and high opportunity, then really what's preventing us from realizing that value, right? How do we tap into that asset? How do we make sure that the processes and the technologies that we're using in our day-to-day, procurement organization are driving the best decisions and business outcomes based on that information? And to kind of illustrate where that challenge comes from, I like to talk about this story I heard years and years ago, and it resonated with me. And I kind of use it to illustrate some of the challenges we continue to have in different areas and different parts of our business. And it's an old proverb that has since been turned into a book and a poem. But it's about these blind men in a village, and nobody knew what an elephant was like. And one day they took a trek led by a young boy out into the countryside to see an elephant, feel an elephant, to understand what an elephant is. And each of these blind men, when they were evaluating the elephant, they understand the elephant to be something different. So the first guy went and he was touching the elephant's trunk, and he said, "And I know what an elephant is. It's like a snake." And the next guy, was touching the leg of the elephant and said, "No, it's a tree." And the third guy is touching the tail and says an elephant is a rope. And the fourth is touching the side and saying it's a wall. And the ears are like fans, and the tusks are like spears. So when you think about this, right, all of those people had a different piece of information, right, that in their mind was true, right, based on the facts they had, based on the quality of data they were presented with. They made a decision that in their mind was true. But we know at the end of the day, this is not what an elephant looks like, right? An elephant is not a combination of those parts and pieces. But if we take this information and we make decisions off of disparate, not aligned, not consistent information that's spread across our business, then this is what our procurement organization and the decisions that we make can look like. So why is that? Well, the pain is because this industry has grown so much, so fast, so quickly in the last 15, 20, 25 years, to where there are disparate systems that we rely on every day to make those business decisions, to drive our operational efficiency, to drive cost savings, to fuel S2P and procure to pay. And each of these systems, as part of the technology stacks, all have disparate systems of data that don't connect to each other. So I think sometimes we assume if we bring, the right technology into our business, we have the right ERP, we have the right S2P systems, we bring in the right analytics or or data lake platforms, that all of a sudden the supplier data or the data in general issue is going to be solved. But when you think about the number of different portals and profiles, and you've got your suppliers that are maintaining their data differently, the buyer's responsibility to assure that that's aligned on the supplier side, but is that cascading through to the different profiles that are driven from our procurement systems? It's really not. And most of our systems, when we implement these systems within our procurement tech stack, most are relying on kind of that one-time enrichment of data, right? It's typically done manually or through a third party that gets us a foundation of the data that we need. But we all know suppliers change frequently, right? The framework of the supplier, the firmographics of the supplier, the certificates of the supplier, the risk points, they change on an ongoing basis. And if we can't drive that throughout our process, it becomes a big challenge. And what makes that an even bigger challenge, we're all aware, the growing e-procurement solutions in the business, right? There is not a single point of technology that we can implement in our procurement processes within your business that solve all of these problems, right? There are specialized things that each of us want to bring into our own procurement world to help drive point solution system decisions based on your industry, based on, how we're trying to solve the problems that are put in front of us. And when we talk about if the ERP and the S2P systems and the data warehouses and the analytics all have disparate data, just think about how the more pieces that we add into this, whether that's risk, whether that's supplier performance, collaboration, reselling, commodity, advanced solutioning, contracting, etc., the more pieces you bring into the puzzle, if we don't have a data foundation that can really facilitate the cleansed data, the normalized data, the consistent, the frequent, the refreshed data across the systems, then we're back into the elephant situation, right? We're back to making decisions based on inaccurate, unaligned, inconsistent data. So what does a supplier data platform really allow you as a business to do to bring some of that consistency across the board? Well, it starts really on the left. And if we think of the left side of this as, let's call it the raw oil or the fuel or the electricity or the battery for an electric car. But if you think about that as the fuel for the car, it's the ability to bring in all sorts of structured and unstructured data from throughout the ecosystem to create machine learning and data science algorithms that allow us to capture the best quality, the most refreshed, the most consistent, the most accurate data to fuel that engine. And then what the data platform allows us to do is then take that data, to take those sources, to fine tune that down to the most accurate and trusted pieces of information, and then use industry knowledge and machine learning techniques to transform that, to verify it, to match it to the customer supplier base from all of those different systems that you're using, to have one consistent set of enriched data with kind of that master supplier record, if you will, that then allows you to have access to all of those different attributes that might not be consistent in each of those systems. Type of firmographic data, the classification, what type of supplier, what type of industry, what type of vertical, accurate contact information, financials, risks, liabilities, regulatory controls, certifications, ESG, diverse suppliers, so on and so forth, right? These are all important things that drive different value through the integration to different systems within your procurement tech stack in different ways. And having a data platform to not only have that set of data, but also to be able to facilitate the transmission of that data to the systems in which you live. So through sets of business rules and routing and workflows and standard integrations and APIs, the ability for you as a buying organization to say, hey, for these systems that I use, whether they're homegrown, whether they're part of those slides that we talked about earlier, like these are the important pieces of data that I need throughout those systems to make better business decisions. So it might be that for my ERP system, there's 6 pieces of information that have to be 100% accurate all the time, because we have to make sure that the payments get made, that the finances are accurate. Maybe from an S2P perspective, there's 27 data attributes, as part of that supplier discovery process. I want to understand, how can we go source new suppliers that are diverse or sustainable, or in new markets that we're going to in an easy way. And I need to make sure that those data elements are accurate. Where maybe on the back end, from an analytics and an insights perspective, or some of the other e-procurement solutions, there's a different set of data with different quality levels that have to be driven to make those decisions. So having a data platform as the engine of your business can essentially put that engine in whatever these cars on the right-hand side that you're operating under. So if you have different solutions, you can put that engine in different pieces to assure that if I'm a supplier on the front end through the discovery and sourcing process, I know that that's the exact same supplier on the back end when we're processing those transactions, when we're making those, when we're actually spending the money related to it, whether it's through, an invoice, matched to a PO, whether it's through P card, Ghost card, credit card, et cetera, et cetera. How do we align that consistency there to really allow, better business decisions and business outcomes wherever you may live? And then some, like what TealBook provides, in addition to making sure that the data lands in the systems in a consistent way that you're making decisions on, right? We also provide other layers of applications to where, if you don't have those systems or those processes within your procurement stack already, we provide some of that reporting and discovery and tier 2 evaluation for you within the platform. But this helps drive, and everything from digital transformation to relationship management to risk mitigation. But how does that really drive cost savings? And I think that's one of the things that I think sometimes we get caught up on in the procurement world is, immediately people translate cost savings into price. And price is a huge part of cost savings, but cost savings really can be evaluated in a couple of different ways. So if we start with that kind of price, if you will, right, this discovery, the sourcing, the validation piece, you've got all of these areas, right? And, you're able to understand, do we have the right suppliers in the right places, in the right size to maximize your direct saving, negotiation opportunities. And we've seen, especially in the last couple of years, large scale disruption and shortages that have impacted the global markets, right? That increases the need for really highly qualified alternative sources of supply to help assure that the businesses are running with that continuity that we expect. And then, I mentioned earlier, when you think about supplier performance, it's a consistent view of that data throughout the entire system. You might be able to discover new suppliers, perfect. Can even get those goods purchased, wonderful. But are you validating that what we're getting on the negotiated rates are with the right suppliers on the back end? Can we assure that those suppliers that were sourced up front, is that the same supplier in the same location, tied to the right contract, as all of the transactional data that's coming on the back end? And most of you live and breathe in data all the time, I'm sure. So you've seen these scenarios where you can look at something as simple as, a global purchasing card or a corporate card that your employees might have. And if you look at the spend coming out of those, just from the spend side, you might see the same vendor, the same vendor chain, the same hotel location, whatever it might be going on those cards. Even in one source of transaction, you'll see 15, 20 different ways that supplier information comes through based on where that card was swiped, who the processing agent was it at a location, was it online, how were those sourced? So a lot of times it's hard to tie those back to the negotiation that you did up front to assure that we're realizing that value and those cost savings that we're supposed to be getting. It also helps drive some of that channel compliance. And you can start evaluating that through, proper reporting and insights that can then turn into actionable analytics. When you think about the risk mitigation and the ESG opportunities, this is where cost savings isn't just about driving down the price. It's also about kind of expanding the ability to move from just monitoring real spend to measuring the impact of the business, right? What are the contractual obligations? What's the market perception? What are local regulations that you might be going into? What's the employee sentiment about how we're managing a business and what type of suppliers you're using? There's also been a lot of studies out there that you can read that show that having the ability to source diverse suppliers, right, positively leads to more resilient supply chains, which we've seen, right, in the recent years. Or as you're trying to expand markets, being able to understand diverse suppliers and new markets and emerging markets that you're going into are going to help you get a leg up on the business. And then there's some direct cost savings as well, right? When you think about sourcing the right environmental suppliers, might help lowering operating expenses like, energy consumption, water use, raw material costs, etc. And then, there's some tangible benefits on the back end as well. When you think about government subsidies, support, a boost in employee motivation, or being able to attract some of that talent through higher social credibility, those are all different forms of bringing value and savings to the organization. And then I think lastly is experience, right? This is the customer experience. This is the buyer experience. um, it costs, right? It costs to source suppliers. It costs to manage data, right? Whether it's you're getting suppliers from employee references or business recommendations or Google searches, it all takes time, right? So being able to have, you know, consistent data that brings those attributes to the forefront of your system or leverages, discovery tools like what TealBook provides helps reduce those costs, right? So employees and some of the purchasing resources can get more strategic versus tactical, and also drive some eliminations for the tools and systems to try to combat that bad data. Right? I've lived that world on the other side before, as I'm sure all of you have. Right? Manual curation and cleansing of data throughout systems, building manual reports, spending time validating the data quality and credibility of everything that we're pulling out of those systems. Because when we put something in front of somebody to make a decision, when we're bringing that to management, when we're making a decision on a supplier or a way that we want to go validate some of the business decisions we're making, as soon as we lose that trust within our organization, right, that credibility is lost. So there's so much time being validated because there's not a transparent and open way to understand the quality of that data that you're making decisions on. So there's a lot of those savings and cost savings opportunities that I'd implore you to think about when you're trying to understand, how do I drive better savings? How do I bring more value from a procurement organization? It spans more than just, price and sourcing and discovering of particular suppliers. On the discovery side, we recently did some evaluation with Spend Matters on trying to quantify some of these key pieces within the discovery side, and we're working on quantifying some of these other metrics that we talked about earlier. But just some of the simple ones that I was talking about, right? Saving time, 90 minutes to 5 minutes is the average time per sourcing event. Reduction by having a consistent data set and tooling to do that. Time to chase supplier data certificates, tier 2. How are we assuring, how are you assuring in your business when we're looking at diversity and sustainability? Like, what are your suppliers using? How do you get to that tier 2 level data without having to go and manually ask every single supplier that comes within that business space? The reporting side is critical as well. Putting those reports together, validating that data, assuring that you're attributing the right certificates to the right companies and they haven't expired. Like, this is a hard manual effort that takes a lot of time if you don't have that data foundation built throughout your data set. From supplier data, 1 to 2% on duplicate vendors and consolidation. We see 1 to 3% savings on sourcing events, increased completion rates, 10 to 15% increase in spend initiatives around ESG and diversity. And then lastly, on the supply, it's just the increased number of suppliers that you have access to, and the opportunity to source both locally by market, by region, by vertical. The reduction of continuity issues with suppliers. How do you assure that the entire supply chain has the right thresholds of risk factors that you're comfortable with on making sure that the business continuity for your business is aligned with the continuity of the business of your suppliers? And then, just the rate of discovery, right? One-time discovery, ongoing, sourcing opportunities. Again, having that data consistent, being able to look at past trends, past reporting that are tied to, standard supplier data sets and information and added attributes, allow that process to really be faster, quicker, more accurate, and fuel that cost savings. So when you think about those pieces, right, it brings us all back to the elephant, right? If you can install into your program a common set of data, right, a foundation for your business, a foundation for the tech stack, the ability for all of the users within your organization that have a need to leverage consistent data from your S2P programs or your ERP programs or your data platform to make the decisions that matter within their business. Now we're taking the the ability to have that complete picture. We're taking um, the eye coverings off, the masks off, to see all of the data in one place, to really get us the full picture of what an elephant looks like. Right? What does the procurement organization look like? What are the decisions we're making? And are we making the right decisions to mitigate that risk and drive cost savings throughout the business by having that consistent foundation? So with that, I'd like to say thank you for listening to the prepared materials, and we'll go look and see if there's any and questions have been driven into the system or through the chat. So I see we've got one that came up. Why do you feel it's so hard for these technology companies to create and maintain a level of data quality that the industry needs for these decisions? Well, that's a good one. I think, and this is going off of my experience in the past. I've been at a lot of these big companies. I've been at, the Oracles, the SAPs, the Arivas, the Concurs of the world. And at the end of the day, data quality is very valuable for them, right? It's important. But what's important to those businesses is making sure that you can process the transactions that you're going to work on, right? So, can I create an expense report? Can I book my travel? Can I assure that, an invoice is going to get passed through the right workflow? Can we assure that, the contract alignment is there? Right? Those are the main focus areas of these business, to make sure that the processes that you're trying to solve within those technology stacks are most valuable to you. So when it comes to, investment and the amount of time and resources and dollars, those dollars are always going to go to making sure that that user experience, and that those strategic and tactical systems work the way that you need them to work for your business. And the data quality is a kind of a lower priority, right? Just, there's only so many resources to go around, and that's where, we've got some great partnerships, as an example, from TealBook with the likes of SAPs and the Jaggers and the you know whole slew of those e-procurement solutions that we talked about earlier, because we can complete that picture, right? We can complete that picture for you as a buyer on, here's the partners, here's the tools that you're using every day, and here's the consistency of data within them. Let me see if there's any other questions. So it seems like that was the only one that was put in the Q&A. If anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat or use the Q&A tools. Hold on, I see a lot of stuff coming in the chat. Let me try to. So how many suppliers from Middle East or from Middle Asia at your platform, and how many Canadian suppliers are in your database? Those are very good questions that, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head of what that looks like. Our supplier base right now has 5.2 million suppliers, a little over 5.2 million suppliers within the system. We span global regions from a supplier data platform. Right now, we mostly support English language companies, so have great coverage across North America, the UK, Australia, etc. We're working right now on expanding that outreach to be able to support natural language from a lot of the other regions across the market. It's something that we're evaluating as part of the upcoming roadmap and planning going into the new year, is how do we continue to expand that coverage and support more and more local suppliers in some of those other areas as you and your business tries to expand. So unfortunately, I don't have the exact numbers. We do have a virtual booth that's running throughout the day, where we've got some of our smart team experts manning that booth all day. I'd encourage you to go check out that virtual booth, and they might be able to provide you some of those exact number answers that you're looking for, that I unfortunately can't provide at this time. Looks like another question came in. So I'm not sure I fully understand this question that came in. Mohammed, maybe we can reach out offline, and I'm happy to talk through that a little bit more. I'm not sure I understand it enough to be able to answer in this audience. But it was a question around breaking regional boundaries, like procurement from the international market. So, Mohammed, I'm happy to talk offline on that if we can. Maybe I can understand a little bit more about your question and get you an answer there. All right. Does not seem like any more questions are coming in. I know we're running up on the end of the time. Again, appreciate the time. If you have any questions, again, we have a virtual booth going all day. My contact information is in the profile that's part of this session. Please feel free to reach out. Wide open door. Happy to answer any questions that you might have, whether that's around TealBook and the data platform that we offer today, or in general around procurement, some of the experience. I'd be happy to take the time and speak with you. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event today.